Joan of Arc was born on the eve of the Epiphany in 1412. She was the fifth child to Jacques d'Arc and Isabelle Womet, and had three brothers and a sister. Joan was an ordinary child with the exception of her obsessive level of faith, for which she was often teased by peers and respected by elders. At the age of 13, Joan had her first encounter with her famous voices. Though she claims to have seen a multitude of angels, her most common visitors were St. Catherine, St. Margaret, and St. Michael the Archangel. These voices laid out the path Joan would take to becoming a hero in the 100 Years' War. Joan snuck away to her uncle, who traveled with her to Vaucouleurs in order to visit his lord, Robert de Baudricourt. After two unsuccessful meetings, he finally granted Joan an escort to meet the Dauphin in Chinon. The Dauphin hid among the crowd when Joan arrived, leaving an impostor on the throne. Joan directly approached the true Dauphin, bowed before him, and kissed his feet. After an examination by university clergymen, the Dauphin granted her command of the entire army of France. She sent some men to the St. Catherine chapel nearby, and they unearthed the blade from beneath the altar that she carried for the rest of her campaign. It held the fleur-de-lis, her renowned symbol, on its hilt. Her first step was to lift the siege of Orléans. Joan led assaults on surrounding forts that the English had conquered over the previous 2 years. 3 fell before they moved on to their most daunting challenge, La Tourelle, which stood across the bridge from Orléans. During the battle, Joan was shot in the shoulder by a bolt, yet later she returned, and seeing her valor, the men rejoined the fray, and victory soon followed. Civilians bestowed upon her the nickname La Pucelle, the Maid of Orléans. La Pucelle's next goal was to escort the Dauphin to Reims to be properly crowned. They cleared 3 fortresses before being ambushed at Patay. However, the ambush was spotted by French scouts, and it turned into a slaughter of Englishmen. Joan consoled one of the English soldiers as he passed by receiving his final confession. The Dauphin was crowned King Charles VII in Reims, and there was much jubilation. However, as he attempted to make a truce with the formerly French province of Burgundy, Joan got agitated. She needed to take Paris back to fulfill her mission. By the time Charles realized that Burgundy was simply giving Paris time to fortify, Joan was already on the move. Unfortunately, a loss of Paris after a treacherous act by Charles that forced Joan to call off the siege resulted in Joan's first defeat on the battlefield. Charles then disbanded her army, sending Joan to serve under his lieutenant general. After a few more skirmishes, Joan traveled to Compiègne. Here, in the midst of battle, she was cut off from supporting troops when the gatekeeper drew up the drawbridge while she remained outside. She was captured by Burgundians and auctioned off to the English. Joan attempted both escape and suicide while in prison, by a miracle surviving a 40-foot fall from a tower. Eventually, she was brought before trial before an English Catholic court and sentenced to execution. On May 30th of the year 1431, Joan was burned at the stake at the age of 19. Memorials were built of Joan in numerous French cities, and she is considered the patron saint of France. Clearly not a nonviolent movement advocate, Joan still raises interesting questions on the Church's view of violence versus nonviolence. The initial argument resides in whether or not one believes the voices Joan claimed to experience were authentic. Studies of her character back in her time, and more recent studies, all analyze this aspect and come to the conclusion they may have been legitimate. Her personality does not fit with any ailment that caused delusions and the like. The Church must have supported this and found the voices genuine because they canonized her in the year 1920. While Joan may never have killed an enemy with her own hands, the cause she led definitely incited violence. So, does this mean that violence must be a solution sometimes? If not, why would God have led Joan on this path?